Hello everyone, I hope you're well. Welcome to my YouTube channel. I thought I'd pop by and we'd just have a little creative time for no reason other than I just fancy having a little bit of creative time. So I thought the first thing we'd do is have a little play, and I've now left it down on the floor, with my die set. So we've got die set Post Art DI01, and I thought we'd have a little play with that. And I thought it'd be nice just to give some simple seasonal ideas. So what I've got is I've cut the die out as it is. You can use the stencil and put the shading on and then cut the stencil out if you wish. We've also got the little piece on top that we can put on the top of there or leave it without, whichever we want. I just cut them out anyway. And then as you can see, I've got one on here that it's cut out perfectly, and I've cut this out of Pink Frog Super Smooth Card 300 GSM, and that's cut cleanly out of the 300 GSM. So let's just pull this out. Okay, and with this one, I put the two of them together. Let me just move that out of the way somewhere. I don't want to lose that, or that one. So I actually put the two dies together this time and held together with some low tack tape, and you get this as the frame. How wonderful is that? So you can either have them solid, you can have the middle cut out, or you can have it on top here like so. But doesn't that look lovely? Or you can build this up so that it's got a frame, build it up a little bit and it looks like a little frame. So I just love those. What I also love, let's move this out of the way. The other thing I love is that you've also got these pieces here that you can actually use as well in some projects. So don't bin those, keep those for another project. And what I thought we could use is we could use some of our elements on our myriad of designs. So I thought we could use those and have a see what we can play with. So I'm going to take, I think, some blues. Now I didn't pull any colours out because I'm good like that. So let's have... So I've got Salty Ocean. Shall we do it all in blues? Do you know, I think we'll do it all in blues. Now, do I want to have it like that? Or do I want a plain one? Do you know, the problem is I can't make my mind up. I think I'm going to layer it on here. What happens if you layer it? Stop asking yourself what happens if. So if I put that on there, and then I mount this up so that it's raised with some pin flare, or just slot it back in. Oh yes, I can't make my mind up. So keep all that white. Yeah. Do you like how I can't make my mind up? Because I'm just hopeless. Absolutely hopeless. So what I'm going to do, so that I've automatically got some grounding, I'm going to place some low tack tape sort of on the very edge there, like that, just on the bottom, so there's a tiny little bit masked off just with my low tack tape. Okie doke. I'm then going to get my blending brushes. Tracy's going to faff. So I'm using my set of smaller blending brushes, and I've got the ones I want all in blue. So don't forget, this is about a simple idea, nothing complicated. So you could literally have it with none of the other bits and just have this if you wanted to. It's entirely up to you. And we're just going to do some simple blending, nothing more complicated than that. So you could have a little session where you cut out all your elements that you want. So then I'm going to take, it does help if I tell you the colour, doesn't it? I'm going to take Blueprint Sketch and I'm going to blend the Blueprint Sketch just at the top. Now the idea with this is I'm not going to show you how to make extra backgrounds. I'm just showing you how to create a simple seasonal design. And then we'll take Salty Ocean. So let's take Salty Ocean. So I've got this bit just here masked off. So I'm coming in with Salty Ocean. You could even put some low-tack tape behind your little piece to hold that in place if you wanted to. Now, make sure you've got plenty of ink on your ink blending tool. And what you'll find is that blending is much more simplified. So just go in there and keep blending your colour. Then come back to your first blending tool and come in and just blend again. And then I'm going to take a little bit more of Salty Ocean, mainly because mine is super well used. And then I'm just going to come in and just blend a little bit more of that Salty Ocean. And I'm going to continue blending that ink just down into where the low tack tape is. And can you see that even on a small piece of card, I don't rush that process, that blending process. It's no different than if I was colouring with my pencils. So I'll come in with a bit more, and it's about the layers of that colour. It's not about rushing it, it's just about the layers of that colour. There we go. So I've got the sort of ombre effect, so dark down to light, down to this that's masked off. So then, I don't want to leave this on. Yes, I do want to leave that on. Do you like how I question myself? So I'm going to add a few little light splatters. So I'm going to take a little bit of water. Take a little bit of that water. I'll take a little bit more because I know that it won't be enough. And then I'm just going to add a few little... It's hilarious because when I first do it, it doesn't look like I'm doing anything. Let's just add a little bit more water. There we go. So I'll just grab a little piece of kitchen roll. Now don't forget, this is about simplicity, nothing too complicated. First of all, let's just mop up that water because I know what I'll do. And I'll just take my kitchen towel, and I've just given that a little bit of time just to absorb onto there, just so I've got some of those patches on there. I can easily add more afterwards, just so when I stamp, I don't sort of pick this ink all over my finger. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to look at my stamps. So let's look at our stamps. This is a myriad of designs, TE44. Now, I'm not going to rush what I'm doing. I'm just going to take my time. So then I'm going to, you can just have a look at your elements. So I'm thinking the little snowman here, I'll probably use that. So let's take the little snowman. I'll just grab a small acrylic block. So let's just grab that small acrylic block, like so. And then I just want it, the outline, don't I? Think about this. So grey. So I'm just thinking, do I use grey or do I use twilight? It's like I can't make my mind up. I think I'm going to grab twilight. spot the person that's thinking on her feet. So I'm going to grab the twilight. And I'm going to lift this up just so that you can just see. Now, it's obviously up to you. You can just stamp it, all of it, in the twilight. I'm just wondering whether that, but then, no, because I want to add a little bit of colour. So I've just sort of stamped. Think about this. So if I did it in the... Nope. Nope. So let me just grab. I love how I changed my mind. I think it's hilarious. I'm going to take that off. So now I have a clean snowman because Tracy can't make her mind up. There we go. Tracy cannot make her mind up. So if I go for an oxide ink, so if I go for Hickory Smoke, and we'll just ink this up in Hickory Smoke. And what I'm going to do is just test what I get. So just grab a piece of this. You see, you could even cut this out and use this as well. That's what I like. So let's just have a look at what this looks like. Is that going to be dark enough to show up on there, do you think? I know what I could do. I'm making it more difficult for myself, aren't I? You don't even have to do the grey. You're making it too difficult for yourself, Tracy. What I can do is pick up the colour I've used in the background here, which is Blueprint Sketch. Pick up the Blueprint Sketch and then ink the little snowman up with the Blueprint Sketch. And I'm just going to add my little snowman here. Just give that a little bit of time. It's just a habit I've got into now that I always give my ink a little bit of time just to do its job. I don't lift that up straight away because there's no point doing that. There we go. Perfect. So I've got my snowman on there. And then what we're going to do is just change that a little bit. So let's grab a little brush. Let's grab some of that water again. Now, because I've used that oxide ink, that works to my advantage. So I'm going to take my brush, and then what I'm going to do is take the water, as you can see. Do I want to give him a different colour hat, do you think? To match the scarf. So I'm adding a little bit of water to that background, and then you can see I've bleached that out. So I've just bleached out his hat and his scarf, because then if you want to, you can colour in those areas with some pencils. So let's just that's it, make those a little bit more prominent. You can add a little bit of water here. I'm going to lift this up so you can see just what we've got here. So you haven't done anything complicated. At the moment, the only thing I've done because we can't pick it up because my hands are wet. Lift this up for you. So I've just bleached out those areas, and you could quite easily then, you could leave it like that if you wish, or you can add some colours. Now before you add any colours, give that a dry. And you're giving that a dry because if I want to come in with some Prismas, you don't want to scratch at that card and then break it down too much. You really don't want to do that. So let's grab my Prismas and we'll spend all day doing it. And then what we can do is we can do this hat and a scarf in a different colour if we wish. So what about a little bit of, where's my little chartreuse gone? Oh, no, it's there. I was going to say, oh no, where's my little chartreuse? Pencil, that is, before you think I've gone absolutely stark raving mad. So let's grab a little bit of the turquoise, and there we go. What colour are you? Honestly, I look at too many colours, I do. I don't know, so just leave them out, Tracy. Okay, so what I can do now is I can add a little bit of different colour. I've got Parrot Green, PC1006. I've got Jade Green, 1021. And I've got Light Aqua, and which is 992. So 992, 1021, 1006, and Chartreuse 989. No ideas what I'm using there. But now I can come in and I can add a little bit of a different colour to my hat. Now, if you wanted it really simple, you just leave it like that. You don't add any more to your little snowman if you don't want to do that. So it's entirely up to you whether you want to add a little bit of colour or not. I think I'm only going to need the two colours there. So I'm just using Parrot Green, Light Aqua. I'm going to come in with a little bit of Light Aqua, like so. And then I'm going to use a little bit of chartreuse, just to add a little bit of chartreuse. Okay, I can also do the same with the scarf, just to give a little bit of detail to the scarf and just make it a different colour. There we go. And yes, I'm faffing a little bit, but it doesn't matter, does it? Then a little bit of the chartreuse. There we go. So then I can come in, just give it a little bit more depth to the hat. And don't worry about your white areas at the moment because it's such a small area. You can come in and do that afterwards. So you could have a different hat for each one. You could have a red one for some. It's entirely up to you. So let's bring that a little bit more detail. To our scarf. So just giving a little bit more colour to your hat and scarf. You can also, when you've finished adding, you can just add a little bit of white just to give a little bit of highlight, particularly if your Posca pen's working. particularly if your Posca pen is working. So you can add a little bit of a highlight just here and there. You can come back in and go over that as well quite easily, no problem at all. So don't sort of worry about that. And you can also, where's the thingy? Let's take a little bit more. Oh, there's some water there, but a little bit more water. And again, you can come in and just continue. You can leave that water on there as long as you wish. It's entirely up to you. You can even add details to the little body, should you wish. There you go. So you can add little details as well, if you wish. If we take this off just at the bottom, you can see that it automatically has some grounding now. So what I'm going to do then is I'm going to take, what number is it now? TE, do you like how I have to remember? I think it's T38, 35, 36, 30, oh come on, 30, is it this one? I like how I haven't got a clue. I'm sure it's 38. I don't know which envelope it's in. Oh. There it is. So what I'm going to do then is take stamp set TE38, and it's got the tree on there. So let's take the tree of TE38. There we go. Just bring this in. Bring another acrylic block. Move some of these out of the way so that we haven't got everything everywhere. And then I'm just going to bring, I'll just use the twilight now. So take a little bit of the twilight. We can come in, we can bring a little bit of card just so that we don't bring any of that oily ink onto my non-stick craft sheet. So then I can bring a few branches. So shall we have a few branches just coming in here? So we can bring a few branches in to our design. And then I'll just give that a little bit, I nearly said a blow dry then. I'll just give this a bit of a dry. A blow dry, what am I like? So then I've got my little branches on there. Where are we? Don't grab too many pencils out at once, which is just one of my terrible habits, because now I want the tiniest Inktense pencil. There it is. So move that out of the way. So I'm going to just add a little bit of shading. Now this is my grey Inktense pencil, which is water, which reacts to water, moisture. It's permanent when dry, and it's called Chinese ink. Just take the excess off there. So I just want to touch this just with a little bit, just to give a little bit of shading. Now, also, I'm going to start doing stamplets, little stamplets that I'm going to add to my Thrinchy books. And little stamplets, what I mean by that is, we'll create designs like this that we can add on here and then you can just place them in a new book with just stamplets. And we've then got books where we've got so many ideas that we're not going to run out of ideas for using our product. So that's the whole point. We don't run out of ideas. So I'm going to come in and I'm just going to add a little bit more to the hat and a little bit more to the scarf. So again, you can add as much or as little as you want to the little details, but we do want to make it look a little bit more snowier. Well, Tracy does. Where's my Posca pen? Now, you want to use something that's not going to be affected by the oxides. So I'm going to take a little bit of water, little tiny bit of water, and I'm going to use the bleed proof here. And then what I can do is I can add, let's just bring in the kitchen roll. I always bring in a bit of kitchen roll just in case I've got a little bit too much moisture. And I can just add a little bit just to my branches. Now, you don't want it to be too regimented, because if you want it to look a little bit snowy, it's not going to look, you know, totally regimented, just snow, is it? It works in different ways. So we're just making that look a little bit more snowy. And it doesn't even matter if you add a few of your own branches in. But what I can do now with my bleed proof, which is the Dr. P.H. Martin's Bleed Proof White, does exactly as it says on the tin. It's bleed proof. So the whole point is that it doesn't pick up any of those colours underneath. There we go. So I can just add a little bit of white here. And then what I can do is I can bring in a little bit more, just sort of a little bit of the snow here. Let's pick up a little bit more of that pigment. Just to, and I'm bringing it all on the bottom area as well, just so it's a little bit more textural. You could use your texture paste Twinkle that I've just had in stock, just to add to that. But again, you don't have to faff as much as I'm doing. You could just add one thing to this little postage stamp. No problem at all. Let's just add a little bit. There we go. Let's just add them. And the problem with me is I could play with the snow just continually, because it's rather addictive. And I'm going to end up with drifts in a minute, never mind snow. So just adding, but I'm making mine quite textural, just so that it's not, there we go. I won't even bother, I was going to say I won't rinse it out too much, because I'm probably going to pick it up again. So you can see what I'm doing is I'm actually playing. So let's bring in our standard 4x6 inch card. Let's bring this in and let's just have a play. So if you wanted to, you could quite easily just have that, bring a little bit of the blue around and a sentiment. If you wanted it really, really simple, you could make little teeny weeny cards. Of course, I don't want that. So I'm going to take my framed piece, and I'm not going to stick it down initially because I'm a pain in the neck. Am I going to stick it down? And you're going to have to put up with me talking and talking. Just continually. Yes. So I'll just take my adhesive again that still needs filling up. So there's so many ways you can use the dies as well. I mean, this die would look brilliant with so many things. So let's just... So the idea about these sessions, when I say, oh, a bit of creative time with Tracy, the idea is I'm just playing. Might not come up with anything, but the idea is that I'm playing. You can see I'm playing like a normal crafter and having a play and seeing where it goes and what I end up with. And if I don't end up with anything, I don't end up with anything. It doesn't matter, because it's about sometimes the playing is more important sometimes than the actual finished result. So let's take a little bit of pin flare, and initially let's just put a little bit of pin flare on till I can decide whether I like it or not. So let's just place that in there. There we go. Actually, yes, I do like it. Okie dokie. Let's just push that up because both me and Ian forget. So as you can see now, you've then... Oh, I'll just peel it apart. You can see you've got your little framed piece, and you could quite easily just leave it on there, couldn't you? No problem at all. You could just leave it like that. It doesn't need anything else. However, if you want to take it up another level, I'm going to faff like Brett. Do I not want to stick it down first? So that gives you one idea. It's like how you can tell I'm playing. No, because I want dimension on that. If you don't want dimension because you're posting it, you just leave it like this. And I'm playing just like this. So what I'm going to do then, I'm not going to stick it down, which would make it easier, but because I can't make my mind up, we're not sticking it down. So I'm then taking the blueprint sketch, and what I'm going to do this time is I'm going to extend the blue just onto my card. And then you can decide how much or how little you want to add. Now, don't worry about covering up your white paint, because we'll go over that again. The idea is I'm playing to give you some ideas. Yes, so we'll stick this down now. So now I've made my mind up that I quite like it. Oh, look, another idea. So let's just adhere this. So you could use your texture paste twinkle. I've had to order some more, so I haven't got one, but they're on the way. There we go. So I can now stick that down because I know that that's what I like. So I'm then going to come in and I'm going to come with the salty ocean. So let's take our salty ocean, and I'm going to add the salty ocean exactly where I've got it here. And we're just having a bit of fun. You know, it's probably easier if you let everything dry. By now, you know what I'm like. And playtime is playtime. So the idea is I make any mistakes, you can then make sure you don't make those mistakes, and we're okay. So I'll just come in with the blueprint sketch. Just add a little bit more of that. You can see I've not added any more ink to the brush. Let's come back again with the salty ocean. There we go. Just lovely. Let's make sure that's stuck down. Let's take this. Move these all out of the way because I do get in a bit of a mess. So then let's take some more of that water. Let's take our fan brush again. I've just taken off the excess there, just so that my splattering is a little bit finer. I do end up splattering it everywhere because that's me all over. So I'm just going for a little bit of a finer splatter. And always give that a little bit of time just to work with the oxide. Just give that a little bit of time. And the longer you leave the moisture on there, the more it reacts. So let's bleach that out. So we've got that really snowy sort of feel to it. Lovely. So then I can come back. See, nothing complicated. I'm just having fun. I'm just playing. But imagine doing this in vintage tones, you know, with browns and making it a real vintage piece. Maybe cut it out a craft card if you wish. But then I can just come along and just come again with my bleed proof white, just to add a little bit of those snowy stems. Again, come in with a little bit of that texture. And can you see I'm dabbing it? I'm not sort of painting it. I'm dabbing it just so that it gives me a little bit of that texture. A little bit on the hat. Okay, let's just... So I've just... I don't want to... Honestly... I'll lose myself. Just, you can also then just add, you can splatter if you want. You can see the minute you start to do it like that, so you instantly, it becomes unnatural. Well, it does for me anyway. So I don't find it very natural. So let's add a little bit more water to this. Put a little bit more pigment in there. And then we'll take that fan brush because it's just a little bit finer. Take that excess off. I'm just going to add. Now you can quite easily do it with your, you know, the dotting, but I find this definitely more natural. Just using that fan brush. And you can see how far this goes, and it's bleed proof. So because it's bleed proof, it will stay white. And we've got our little bit of a snowy blizzard now. We like our little blizzard. The only problem is you don't know when to stop. Or the word is, Tracy doesn't know when to stop. There we go. Let's just pick that up. And then we'll just give these a clean. Mainly because I am being a bit of a good girl with my brushes, so that I don't ruin anything. I mean, you could even, I haven't got another frame cut out, but you could even raise it even more with your frame if you wish. It to be entirely up to you. So I'm going to Where's that? Have I got a dark colour here? I need a dark blue. Let me just grab a dark blue. Nice dark one. What colour are you? Indigo. You can't get much darker than that, can you? Indigo. And I'm just letting that dry. And what I'm going to do with the indigo is I'm just going sort of under the hat and around the scarf, just so that's a little bit darker, just with that indigo, just a little bit darker. Just under the hat, just under the scarf. But you can see how you can keep extending a little bit of shading under there. But you can keep going on and on and on. Even when you're just using little elements. And then if I want to, I can add, where have you gone? On the same stamp set, a myriad, do you like how I say it? A myriad of designs. You can add one of your little birds if you want. No, I want him to face him. I almost talk to them. So just remember, these play sessions are play sessions, not necessarily meaning I'm going to end up with something. There we go. So I'm going to use my black ink. So let's take that black ink. Make sure it's not going to fall. And then I'm just going to place my beard there. Now at the moment, he's standing on top of that snow. So let's just give that a little bit of time, because I've got all that white paint on there. Not even dried it, have I? No. So I've got all that texture on there. There we go. So I've got my beard on there, but the thing is, we need to make sure that it doesn't look like he's sort of floating on the snow. Let me just grab a little bit more. So I'm going to sort of make sure that his feet are a little bit disguised, if that makes sense, so that he does look like he's in the snow. Not that, you know, he's perfect, because that wouldn't be true. Let me just place that in there again. But you can see how many times you can still come in and have a little bit of a play. And you can see how much then I'm enjoying it. You can even add, so we're not going to even add, let's get our sentiment. So we could, I'm going to use, you could use the word snowman and place the snowman there, because then it could be a winter birthday. Or, where's my designs? 22, is it? 22. I'm sure it's 22. So on stamp set 22, we've got winter wishes. On stamp set TE22, winter wishes. That doesn't necessarily mean it has to be a Christmas card. It can be a winter wishes, as in birthday wishes. So let's bring, but obviously mine isn't. So we'll bring in, and I'm showing you how you can extend the design. make it a little bit more detailed, keep it pared back, whatever you want. Now imagine this in browns, in greens, in purples. So you've got an idea then that you can extend for several cards. Okay. Let's have Winter Wishes, and I'm going to add that round there. And now I'm going on to that more porous surface, so I don't have to worry too much because there's nothing else on there. I can then come in and just give a little bit of shading under the sentiment. So I'm going to come in now. You know there's white on this, so there's no point coming in with that. Obviously you can use a clean brush. There we go. I'm just going to pick up a little bit of this blue, and then I'm just going to place that along here and just blend that out. But I'm not using too much water. I'm just being mindful that I don't use too much water. Then I can just blend that out. Just a little bit darker here. There we go. A little bit more water just to soften that out a little bit. There we go. I'm then going to go into the bleed proof. Now this is what it's when it's good, when you've got your fine brushes. So I'm just going to add a little bit on the top of the sort of lettering, and it's mainly for the recipient that they can see. It's just a little bit more wintry, if that makes sense to you. And then I could add the other little bird. Let's put the Winter Wishes back rather than get another acrylic block out. So I could take another bird with the black ink, Nocturne. I actually looked at the ink then for a change rather than just picking one up, which is what I normally do. Now, am I going to, no, let's add that there. There we go. So a simple idea, not a complicated one. It's just that I don't like rushing what I'm doing. So again, we'll come in with that blueprint sketch. Still got white on this because I keep swapping from white to blue and I don't get a new brush in. So pick up that blue. That's plenty. There we go. Just blend that out just so it's a little bit softer. And then again, I'm going to pick up the bleed proof. I'm just going to make sure that there's a little bit of touches of white on there, which again, the recipient will see. You might not see quite as much. I'll then take this. So you can see then that you could do these in brown, blue, green, purple, whatever you wished. And then if I add this to another mat, which is the wrong one, Tracy, this one here. So my card is 4 by 6 and I've cut another piece of Pink Frog super smooth card 4 1/4 by 6 1/4. And I'm going to add the Salty Ocean directly to that card. Now you could just use the stencil, have no dimension, and do exactly the same thing. So now I'm creating my own mat and layer that coordinates perfectly with my card. So I don't need to buy any special card. This will coordinate beautifully. So now I'm going to take my water, just give that a little bit of a clean. Now it doesn't really matter on this if I get a little bit of white or whatever on there. I'm just going to add some water droplets just around the edge, just so that that looks a little bit more snowy as well. And also that pigment then isn't just lying on the surface. There we go. Let's pick that up. No, we won't be able to pick it up. Then we'll just wipe up the moisture because Tracy gets it everywhere. I was going to say, find a dry piece of kitchen roll. So I don't need to give it long. Just need to give it a little bit, you know, a little bit of time. So we've got those bleached out areas. I think we'll treat ourselves to another piece of kitchen roll. And then we'll add this to our mat, which now coordinates beautifully. And let's just add and even if you just get one seasonal card done every now and then, it means you're not rushing around in December. It's nice to have some things to do in December, but not to feel pressurised. Just so that you can actually enjoy the season if you can. So I've then got that added to, and it's, to be honest, it's not got that much depth to it. It's still, you know, postable as a large letter. So I'm then going to add that to a 5 by 7 card blank. So let's add that to a 5 by 7 card blank. And because my card is not curling too much, I don't have to have too much adhesive on there. So place that on there, like so. I'm just making sure it's all pressed in the centre as well. So we've got no sort of air pockets. Let's just remove that adhesive from the end. And I just tend to keep my finger just so I can guide that in. And then if we take a look at our little card, you've got, and look, you can see it's not too thick. That can still go as large letter, but just a lovely little simple idea, just so you can see that. So I hope you've enjoyed that, and I hope you'll give it a go. You could also, if you did it in browns, I might do one in brown, and stamp him in beige colours, and he could have a red hat and scarf, which I'll probably do, to be honest. But that is today's little playtime, creative time with Tracy. So I hope you've enjoyed that. You can add Posca pen as well if you wish, but I'm leaving mine just like that. So love to all, and I'll see you all soon. Bye for now.